I want to have this discussion because I think it's really important. In addition to talking about the red pill versus Christ pill movement, I also want to talk about this disgusting abortion video that I saw because it is actually like horrendous. It's featuring these two women celebrating murdering their unborn baby in dance. So yeah, that'll be fun to talk about. But first, let's discuss this. So first, I want to kind of give like a little bit of a definition on as to what the red pill community actually is. There are a lot of definitions, but this is kind of how I understand it. So the red pill community is made up by people like the Tate brothers, Rollo Tomasi, the guys at the Fresh and Fit Pod, Sneeko, and Pearl Davis. These are the leading characters of this movement, and these are kind of the most prominent people and the people that make the most noise. And the red pill movement, I'm not going to flat out say that they get everything wrong because they don't. They get a lot of things right, and I can appreciate that aspect of it. I mean, that's kind of the reason that I started paying attention to Pearl and the Tate Bros and some of them to begin with, because they say a lot of things that resonate with your average man and make you aware of some of the plights that are happening on the dating scene. Now, I'm not interested in dating, but I am interested in kind of, I'm married, getting a perspective of what your average person is dealing with and kind of have a thumb on that. So they also teach men, how to be masculine. And I think that's good. I think we live in a time where we have a lot of soy boys, a lot of men that don't know how to be men. And I think that's bad for civilization. We also, get a sense of how to navigate marriages. And I think that's, they have some redeeming qualities, not a lot, in their commentary on marriage. I think preparing men to be a little bit realistic about what they're getting into with marriage is a good thing. But where I disagree with them is their prescription to solve the problems that they rightly identify. So they correctly identify that a lot of marriages end in divorce. They correctly identify that men typically get shafted when it comes to divorce. And I've seen this with my own two eyes. I've seen it happen. It happened to a family member recently, and it's not good. It's just not a good situation for men to be in. And I think that it definitely warrants a conversation. Another thing that I think they get right is identifying some of the failures that are happening in the church. And I think that's really important. And that's something that I myself have talked about several times. I think the church is failing in preparing men to become married, and failing also in teaching men how to be masculine. I was listening to a podcast earlier with Chase and I think Mike Panettiere, I think that's his name. And they were kind of discussing this very issue and talking about how I think the guy Rich Cooper was talking about how, that you can walk into a church and it's just filled with soy boys and, people that aren't masculine. And I think that's a problem. I think men need to be masculine and strong and willing to defend their family. I think these are all really important things. And I think it's necessary for a strong church and a strong civilization. All right. So let's get into this. So I think one of the biggest problems that I identified is their prescription to marriage. So they talk a lot about marriage and its shortcomings and how it's basically it's a doomed situation, that if you enter into a marriage with a woman with a quote unquote high body count, or even just marriage in general, that you're setting yourself up for disaster. And I think that is not an accurate description of marriage. I think if you are a Christian and you actually are committed to biblical values, your marriage stands a much higher chance than your average marriage. And that's if you are committed to biblical values. If you are not, then you might run into some problems. And I think you should be prepared. You shouldn't be naive going into marriage. You should be fully aware of what you're getting yourself into. But people like Pearl Davis basically discourage men from getting married altogether. And that doesn't make any sense to me. And I don't know how that's good for civilization. And I think they are responding to kind of the negative message that feminism has brought into society. And they are responding to problems that have been caused by the feminist movement. But the pendulum has completely swung in the other direction. And now it's leaving men jaded and unwilling to enter into the marital covenant. I think that's a problem. Now, let's just get into some of the tweets, because I think this is kind of a good springboard to have a conversation about. So I'm going to play this clip for you that Chase is a clip from of Chase, also known as Sovereign Bra, from the Whatever podcast. So let's give it a listen. And tell me if anything happens to the audio. I want to be sure that this is coming through.
I personally speak out against male promiscuity. I think one of the worst problems in our world is promiscuity in general. I don't support dudes like sleeping with a ton of women. A lot of guys are like, if a guy has a high body count, dudes will be like, dude, nice. I think it's degenerate.
Like it's still like a hot girl, go for it.
Yeah, I think it's degenerate, personally.
It's like contributing to the problem with
exactly. A lot of influencers that are like, yeah, women with high body counts are bad, but also you as a man should go get laid as much as humanly possible. It's like, bro, you're literally advocating for men to contribute to the problem that you're calling out.
And he's absolutely right. I mean, when you encourage this type of behavior and you also advocate for women to be virgins, yeah, you are contributing to this problem. You are creating the very problem that you are whining about. You are making it happen. You are increasing the amount of degeneracy happening instead of having a little bit of resolve. And I one of the things that I find wild too about this, encouraging men to sleep with as many women as possible, is that it is not masculine at all, because all it communicates to me is that you don't have any self-control. A man that cannot control his sexual urges, a man that cannot exercise discipline sexually, is, in my opinion, no different than an adolescent teenager. You have the same emotional discipline as a child, and that's sad. That's pathetic. Men should be able to have some resolve, show some restraint, and be willing to have some self-control. And that's not the case. And you have people like this guy Myron. I'm going to read this tweet too, because this is going to bring me to a whole other topic. But this guy Myron recommending that men sleep with at least 50 women before they get married. That's disgusting. That is disgusting and evil. And if you're a Christian, you recognize that this is evil. And I think one of the issues with the red pill movement as a whole is that they are Christless. Even people like Pearl Davis, she claims to be a Christian. I do not believe it. I do not believe it because I don't think she understands what a Christian actually is. I think she is culturally a Christian, but not a Christian in practice. Maybe she'll go to church once in a while. Maybe she'll get upset that, people are judging her Christianity. Well, your fruit shows that you're not a Christian. It does. I don't know if she thinks that being a Christian is something that you put on like a sweater and take off when it's convenient. I have no idea, but I do not think she knows what that seriously is. And this also brings me to this tweet by Myron. So I don't know if you guys can see this. All right. So he says, Jesus can't save these hoes, and neither can you. You tradcons need to realize feminism is here to stay and it isn't going anywhere. Adapt to the new normal or keep getting married by the church and destroyed by the state. So, first off, Jesus can save anybody, no matter how far we think they are. He can save anybody. There is nobody that's out of his reach. There is no woman that is out of his reach if they are genuinely repentant and want to turn from their sin. He can do it. This is who Jesus is. He is our Savior. I'm just now reading some of the comments. Yeah, 50. He is stupid. That's ridiculous. It's insane. But anyway, so I do believe that this is one of the most beautiful things about Christianity, is that when we fall short, that we can be redeemed, and Jesus can restore us. Now, I do want to add it with a caveat. They talk a lot about women and entering in their childbearing years and suddenly becoming Christian because they want to secure a good man. And I think if they are legitimately repentant, then there needs to be some time for us to see that they are serious about that. That's just the truth of the matter. So if you're a man that's debating entering into a marriage with a woman that's been with a lot of guys, I do think that this is important. And I do think we need to just, be mindful. and I think, and I guess just make sure that they're genuine. And two, I also think women, if women are watching this and you've been with a lot of men, I also think you have to kind of recognize some of the natural consequences of your own sin, because reality is what reality is, and men generally don't want to be with women that have slept with a ton of men. They just don't. That's just realistic, and I know that's kind of a hard pill to swallow, but that's the truth. But that doesn't mean that they cannot be redeemed. That doesn't mean that Jesus cannot save them. That doesn't mean that they can't turn their life around. And that doesn't even mean that they cannot find a meaningful relationship. But they do have to be prepared for the stigma that's going to come with that, because there is going to be a stigma, no matter what. So that's something that I think we need to be honest about. And I think that's something that the red pill community is honest about. But they also exasperate that very problem. So another thing I want to talk about here is, so he says that feminism is here to stay and isn't going anywhere. Well, I think that kind of sounds like a defeatist mindset, if you ask me. So basically, he is saying that since feminism is here, it's not going anywhere. We might as well be as degenerate as possible and give up on the institution of marriage completely. And I think that is just as bad as feminist ideology. And it shows cowardice and an unwillingness to actually change the status quo. And I think that as Christians, this is something that we can do. We can change the status quo. I'm not about to give up because of feminism. I don't think feminism is more powerful than the God of the universe. Sorry, I don't think that. I don't think that feminism is more powerful than the institution of marriage. I don't believe that. I don't think that feminism has dominion in this world. I think Christ's kingdom has dominion, and Christians need to start waking up to that fact and walking in it. So another thing he says is, so adapt to the new normal. Again, just more defeatist mindset, or keep getting married by the church and destroyed by the state. And he does correctly identify a problem with the state being involved in marriage. I personally would rather the state not be involved in marriage altogether. I just wish they wouldn't be. I don't think there is any real benefit to the state being involved in marriage. It's really none of their business. But the fact is that they are, and unfortunately, men get the short end of the stick when it comes to that deal. And I've seen people personally get screwed over in kind of the worst ways imaginable. So real story about somebody I know. They weren't married, but they had kids with this woman. This woman horrifically abused their child, and they are unable to get the rights to their own child. This is horrible, but this is kind of some of the nonsense that the state pulls. They side with the woman over the father almost every single time, and they get screwed in the end. And then, in addition to this, if you are a man who has money, then they also take half of your money. And I think that's a problem depending on when you got married. And something that I thought, so I used to be like pretty much diehard against prenups, and I still am to a degree. Like, I think if you get married young and you build your life together, a prenup is not needed. But I think if you're somebody that you get married later in life, you built your entire life with this other woman, or you built your life apart from this woman, and then you're merging your lives together. I think it might be wise to get a prenup in that situation. And here's what changed my mind on this. So I don't want anybody to think like, I don't want you to think this is something I came to lightly. It's something that I debated over and over again. But Zuby actually made a great point on this that I never thought about. He said, if you don't decide your prenup at the beginning of your marriage when everything is good and you love each other, then the state is going to decide that agreement for you when you're divorced and hate each other. And I think maybe it's actually a good idea to get the prenup. Just saying, might be a good idea. Just a little bit of insurance, and you guys can both come to an agreement that you agree with. Just in case. Now, I didn't do a prenup. Me and my wife built our lives together, and I'm committed to her. She's committed to me. It was not necessary for us, but I could see how it can be necessary for some people, especially if they've acquired a lot of wealth. Then it becomes an issue. So with that being said, he identifies that problem with the state, and I think that's a good problem to observe. Now, again, their prescription for the problem only makes things worse. So they want women to be celibate, and they want virgins, but they also encourage sexual promiscuity for them. So it's wrong for women, but it's okay for them. And I think that's hypocritical. I don't agree with that. I think it's wrong, and I think it's only going to create more problems, especially with people like Myron. He cries about women with high body counts, but then advocates to sleep with 50 plus women. That is one of the most spectacular examples of being a hypocrite that I have ever seen. It is wild to me how he could be that hypocritical. So that's that. There's also been some other issues that have sprung up that encourage more degenerate behavior. Like Curl, I've seen basically support men cheating on their wives, and women should just kind of take it. But that's immoral. From a Christian worldview, adultery is a sin, and it's one of the only justifiable reasons to get a divorce. But this is encouraged, or she wants women to turn a blind eye for this, and I think that is absolutely ridiculous. No, men should not cheat on their wives. They should honor their vows. And for a Christian, we should be taking our vows seriously. We should be raising the standard for what marriage is, instead of listening to the red pill community and sowing doubt into the marital covenant that you made. And I think it's really important. So I also want to talk about something else he said that just rubbed me the wrong way. So he's responding to a tweet that Pearl made. So Pearl first, and I'm going to talk about this too. Telling men that religion and God will protect them from the wrath of modern women is leading them down a path of destruction. Then Myron responds, Tradcons be like, hey, bro, I know there's a war outside and your opponents have shotguns, but here's this butter knife Jesus gave me. Totally, completely underestimating the power of God. God did not give us a butter knife. He gave us a sword to fight the evil in this world. And I think feminism and the red pill movement are two ideologies we need to use this double-edged sword against, because they are purveying evil and supporting evil. And they're also in a way just mocking Christ. And I'm not okay with that. I don't stand for that. I think that's absolutely ridiculous. Now, as for Pearl's tweet, which I think is relevant, I actually responded to her on Twitter, and basically just telling her she has a very small view of God. And it sounds to me, again, like Pearl doesn't even believe in Jesus. But I also believe that God's in the business of doing impossible things. And God has always delivered his people from the hands of the wicked. And if we follow Pearl's advice, if we heed the red pill movement, then destruction is inevitable. But if we choose God's way, that is the only way that we are going to turn things around. That is our only hope in changing the culture, in changing the way that we navigate marriage and navigate relationships. If we start coming at everything from a Christian worldview, I do believe that things are going to change. And I don't just say that as wishful thinking. And I'm not going to sit here and say, just have faith, because faith also requires action. So we do need to do something about it. And I think one of the first things we could do is get serious about our faith, actually study to show ourselves approved, spend time reading God's word, spend time growing as believers, and spend time actually understanding what God has to say about marriage, because what God has to say about marriage is infinitely better than anything these red pillars have to say about marriage. It just is. And the sooner we recognize that, the better off we will be. I will place my bets on the God of the universe, the God who holds my whole world in the palm of his hand. He knows what he's doing. When he created the marriage covenant, he knew what he was doing. And he was giving us something beautiful and something that can be reflective of his relationship with us, his covenant with us. And I think when we start taking our marriage seriously, people are going to notice. You know, my commitment and my vows that I made with my wife, I was serious about them. I understood that I was making a covenant before God, and that nothing that she could do was going to lead me to break my covenant, break my oath to her. And it's not. Short of adultery, I'm going to hang in my marriage until the very end. And I know my wife is a good woman. She would never do that. And we've been happily married 9 years, and we're committed to our relationship with Jesus. Another thing that I think we could do, practically speaking, is start advocating to change some of these laws. So a lot of the pitfalls that we're seeing are a result of people departing from God's law and going at it their own way. And this is how we get movements like feminism. This is how we get the red pill community. This is how we get 50% divorce rates. One of the first things I would do is outlaw adultery. Yeah, I would make it actually illegal. And if you commit adultery in your marriage, you forfeit any financial gain you would get out of that marriage. You completely forfeit it. So I think that's a good start. Another thing I would do is end no-fault divorce. That's a disaster, an absolute total disaster. It needs to be done away with. So I think those are at least two starting places to actually change the law, so that the outcomes are better for men. And I also would, change the way we do social services, so it stops incentivizing women to have lots of babies, and not be married, because I think that's a lot of what social services actually does, is incentivize women to behave in this way. And I think, no, I think if the church is the church, we wouldn't actually need social services. We could rely on our church to be our community and our church to meet our needs. That's how it's supposed to be. So I think that's the direction that we should move going forward. And I think we should start advocating for legislation and calling our representatives, and actually making a fuss over it and having this conversation, because it does need to be had. And if it's not happening in the church, it's happening in the red pill community, and they are hugely influential. There are a lot of people that follow Andrew Tate. There are a lot of people that follow the Fresh and Fit podcast. There are a lot of people that follow Pearl Davis. They take what she says to heart. And I think the church has a responsibility to fill that void, to teach on the covenant of marriage, to help prepare men and women to be husbands and wives. And that means encouraging men to have self-control and encouraging women to be celibate until marriage. I think these are really important. And I think the church has done an abysmal job in promoting healthy marriage. And I also think the other thing is just being an example. More men and women that have been married for 10 plus years need to share their success stories and encourage people and give advice into what a successful marriage actually looks like. And I'd like to look at my marriage as a success story, because I've been married almost 10 years now, and I am more in love with my wife than when we first met. Our marriage is as strong as it's ever been. We are committed to each other no matter what. And I knew exactly who I was marrying when I married her. I knew what I was getting into. I knew the great things about her. I knew the bad things about her. And she knew the great things about me and the bad things about me. And we chose each other anyway. And we worked through each and every single obstacle that has come our way. We have endured adversity and triumphed. And I'd like to look at my marriage as being something solid and something stable, not just for me and my wife, but my children. We're modeling healthy marriages for our children, and preparing the next generation for marriage. So there are definitely things that we could do. And I think it starts with having these conversations. It starts with calling the red pill community out on their nonsense and elevating biblical truth above the nonsense they spew, and challenging them on their wrong prescription to solve this problem, and showing that it will only breed more degeneracy. It will only breed more sexual immorality. It will only breed more broken homes and failed marriages. And we need to stop that. We need to correct course. So that is my thoughts on that for now. So now this next video, God, this video makes me sick to my stomach. All right, so this is from an account called Free Palestine, and her headline is, "Just bumped into my friend at the fetus deletist clinic." Yeah, she thinks murdering babies. So she a lot of people will say that nobody's celebrating abortion. It looks like these demons are. They are celebrating murdering their unborn children. And they use it as an opportunity to create a TikTok video to show what they're doing. And then they make a joke about it. And they are joking about murdering babies. And this is feminism, man. This is feminism. And this is also the result of men that can't control themselves, breeding this problem and contributing to the murder of unborn babies. It's disgusting. It really is. And I think that's another issue that kind of ties into the last issue. Our men's lack of self-control and women's inability to save themselves from marriage breed this disgusting, degenerate behavior. And they're brazen about it. They are absolutely brazen about it, with no regard for the lives that they are extinguishing. And this is one of those things where you have every right to be angry, to have a righteous anger about what they're doing, because it's evil, it's demonic. And I pray, and I do sincerely pray that these women come to recognize what they've done and come to see that they've murdered their own flesh and blood. And I pray that they don't have to suffer the consequences of doing this. I do, because one day they're going to wake up and they're going to want kids. And maybe they won't be able to have them. And maybe that'll be the wake-up call for them. I don't know. But I hope it happens sooner than later, because I don't want these babies deserve a chance. But this is indicative of a much larger problem happening in our culture, where abortion is no longer safe, legal, and rare. It is celebrated. It is advocated for even until the third trimester. And it is one of the dark stains on our country. When you have over 300,000 babies being murdered every year, we are a nation that's marked for judgment, and their blood cries out to God. And I believe part of what we are facing as a nation is the result of a cultural acceptance of this evil. So yeah, that really bothered me. Another video that I want to just briefly cover, because I thought, oh, this is horrible. But I do want to let you guys know, just hanging in there, I will end this on a positive note. I want to try to do that in all my videos, is end on a positive note, or just share like a weird news story. That's kind of my thing. I like weird news stories, but we're going to do this one, another story, and then we'll wrap it up. So this is a video being shared of this woman's child. I think she's in a Walmart, and it's pretty unsettling.
He came in here without that jacket on. Yeah, he did. Obviously.
That baby just had a pimp on.
That's all he got on.
Poor kid's lip is quivering. He's so cold.
I am.
Just threw her food on him.
Yeah, don't do that. Somebody call police.
No, what's wrong with you?
Somebody call police on her.
Who are you? The Lord, my boy. Know your voice. Who are you?
Get out that man.
This altercation continues for a little bit, and finally someone, I guess, buys some clothes off of the shelf to put on this poor kid who's freezing. And this mother is getting irate and upset that she's being corrected for her bad behavior. But you want to know what? We need more of this. People willing to stand up for those who can't stand for themselves and publicly shame people that are doing this. I think this is an extreme example. I think this is one of those examples where CPS absolutely should be involved, because you shouldn't be taking your child out in just his diaper while you're fully dressed. The kid is clearly freezing. So yeah, that was just one of those things that I saw this video that rubbed me the wrong way. It was obnoxious and evil. That's exactly what it was. And she shows no regard. She doesn't care. And And this child is unfortunately suffering. And I hate to think this is what she's doing in public. Imagine what it's like behind the scenes. I can't imagine it's much better for this kid. But yeah, so I found serious issue with that. So yeah, so now we'll end this on a positive note, so that we don't get depressed. Here we go. I thought this video was awesome.
You know, I was out hunting today, come up on this old lake way back in the woods, and I saw an eagle all the way across it. See the lake. And I said, Lord, I sure would like to get close to that eagle, because sometimes I feel like you don't always hear me, but if you hear me today, let me get close. I had a bald eagle land on my shoulder, out here hunting. I don't think you can get no closer than that right there at all.
That is so awesome. I mean, if that doesn't get you excited, if that doesn't get you hyped, like, that is incredible and beautiful, because God hears our prayers. He cares about the little things. And I just think that is so incredible. And I've had experiences like this, where I wanted something small and God showed up and he met that need. And it just shows that he cares about all the details of our lives. And he also has a sense of humor. And I appreciate that. And this was just one of those videos that you're doom scrolling through Twitter, you get this, and it's just a breath of fresh air. You know, it's just some good news and something just really beautiful to show the goodness of God in an evil world. And something that can leave us with a little bit of hope that he hears our prayers, that he answers them, that he is not deaf, that he's not silent, that he's speaking. And that gives me hope. You know, when I see the craziness of the red pill community, when I see the damage caused by feminism, it brings me solace to know that when I pray, when I seek the Lord, that he will respond accordingly, that he will answer my prayers, that he will save these babies. You know, that he will do the impossible, because that's the God that we serve, a God that can do impossible things. And I believe that right now as a culture, we are facing a lot of giants. And things just seem so hopeless and like it can't turn around. Like we can't get a godly man in political office, or we can't beat feminism, or we can't beat the red pill community, and that we just have to accept the status quo. My God is a God that is above the status quo. He sets the status quo. He is who can do the impossible and turn hopeless situations around and work evil together for good. That's who my God is. And I see him working and moving and bringing all the pieces together. And I really do believe that he's going to turn things around. And it's not a belief that's rooted in being naive. It's a belief that I've seen him do it before, and I know he can do it again. I've seen him. I've read the stories of him parting the Red Sea. I've read the stories of David taking down Goliath. I've read the stories of God's people being in impossible situations and him turning that situation around. And I know how the book ends. And that gives me a lot of hope. Because on top of that, I've also seen him do it in my life. Completely turn things around. When you least expect it. When your back is against the wall. All we need is a little bit of faith. All we need is a few men and women who are sold out to Jesus, who are willing to raise a standard, who are willing to speak out against this wicked and perverse generation, and we will see God turn things around. He is not silent to our prayers. He hears us. And that should be a great encouragement. All right. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for watching. Sorry for the hiccup at the beginning. I will be getting better at this. I appreciate you guys. I appreciate you watching. Please like, share, subscribe. Let me know what you think. I want to hear from you. And have a blessed evening. Deuces.